Hello there, welcome to another video, and as in the description I'm going to try and explain to you why I own and run a Mac Pro but yet I use Windows more than I use OS X, and why I really am going off or have gone off Apple in general. Now let's get one thing straight. I love Apple hardware to a certain point. I liked the Macs when they were basically like this. I liked the MacBook Pros when they had more I/O ports, or all the I/O ports that you need to complete daily tasks. Now, firstly, I put Windows 8.1 on this system natively. And what I mean by that is I haven't used Boot Camp. I've not got no OS X operating system now on this system. Basically, Windows 8.1 is installed natively on this system. And the way I did that was, if you guys want to know, is you can't, when you got this, you can't install Windows without Boot Camp, obviously on the system. Otherwise, it just won't read the disk. You know, you'll get errors, and you'll get a little blinking comma in the corner, so it won't install properly. Now, the way I did it was, I got a 500 gig SSD. I put it in a Windows-based tower, and I popped my disk in and installed Windows directly to that SSD. I put the I installed the NVIDIA drivers, which were for the Titan, so I put them the file on there, and basically I took the SSD out of the other system, whacked it in this Mac Pro, fired it up, and it started. Now, this sort of technique doesn't work with Windows 7. I don't know why. It only works with Windows 8.1 because natively Windows 8.1 has more drivers, so basically it will boot straight into it. So that's how I did that. Now, Windows 8.1 runs 2 to 3 times faster on the same hardware that OS X runs. It'll run it a hell of a lot faster. That is something I don't understand. I don't know how many of you guys have gone and built yourself a Hackintosh and found that, for instance, if you do a Cinebench on your graphics card, for instance, it's normally 2 or 3 times as fast on your Mac, running Windows, than it is on your Mac. I know all you guys will, have seen that sort of scenario where you think to yourself, hang on, in OS X, I'm getting sort of 29 frames per second on this GPU, but then when I'm running Windows, I'm getting like flipping 70 to 8 frames per second. To me, it seems like, Windows runs a hell of a lot better natively, a hell of a lot faster on the same system that OS X is running, which is strange because I don't see how Windows can be more faster on a system designed for Apple hardware than it is running its own software. I don't get that, but it's the bullshit behind why Apple keep upgrading their bloody operating systems. It's really getting tedious now, and they don't look any better. They just basically look a little bit more polished. You get sort of some added features, but it's not, it doesn't justify me sitting there and thinking to myself, right, I want to spend an hour just upgrading it all and having to relicense everything, blah blah blah. It's just too much bullshit. I like, to me, a system just to work and work all the time. Microsoft seems to sort of deliver that in a sense where they don't upgrade their operating systems every 2 fucking seconds. Do you know what I mean? Yes, you got Windows 10 coming out on the 29th, but at least the operating system is going to be here for the foreseeable future. I reckon there'll just be some small little upgrades, updates to that, but that's about it. And there's no fucking around with it. Do you know what I mean? You install it, job done. You're there for a good few years, using the same operating system, using your programs. You don't have to worry about will this piece of software work. you know, on Windows 7, or do I have to update to the next version? With, you know, OS X, you always have to continuously worry about, you know, if I upgrade to this software, you know, do I need 10.9, 10.2, 10.10, 10.3? It's just a load of bollocks, do you know what I mean? It's bullshit. And you're forced to, you know, upgrade these operating systems. There's not a choice, you know, you're forced to upgrade these operating systems if you want to run, you know, the latest software, the latest programs and stuff like that, which I think is a bit conny, if that makes sense. It's a bit, you know, you're forced to do what you don't want to do, and, you know, you could have, for instance, Mountain Lion, you know, which was running absolutely fantastic. It was a great OS and very fast, but, you know, I can't keep that now unless I want to run the latest version of my Final Cut Pro. I can't keep it. I'm forced to upgrade to an operating system that ain't as good, which is crap, really. I just don't get that, you know. At least with Windows, if you've got Windows 7, you can install any software you want. There's no limitation, you know. There's no, as long as you've got obviously 64-bit, but then you ain't running 64-bit these days. You can install what program, and you don't have to worry about, you know, that it ain't going to run, because it's going to run and it's going to install and you're going to get no errors and it's going to be perfect. It just seems like Apple are innovating the wrong way, you know. I don't see how innovation, how can I put this? I don't see how innovation means remove more ports from a computer. You know, it should be added, you know. How does one have a computer that's thin and more breakable? That to me is not innovation. That to me is making it, you know, £2.5 worth of hardware more likely to break, you know, if I put it in my bag or if I accidentally drop it. You know, like the MacBook Pro, I just don't get that. I just don't get where Apple are going. You know, they had a perfect, with the original MacBook Pro, it was fantastic because you had all the I/O ports that you needed. You know, you had USBs, you had the optical drive, Ethernet port, you know, your SD card reader, you know, all them little bits that helped with productivity. Now they're removing all that shit just to make it thinner. I don't want it thinner. Do you know what I mean? I don't really want to put my fucking MacBook Pro in an envelope. I give a shit. You know what I mean? As long as it works and it gives me the, you know, the ports and the connectivity and you know, the things that I need to run my daily business, I can give a shit if it fit in an envelope. It just don't make no sense. You know, so that's why they're giving me the hump. You know, they're giving me the hump because they think they're doing better by making things thinner, but yet they're making things worse by removing the I/O and the things that we need to use on a daily basis. You know, I sort of forgave them when they sort of removed the optical drive, and I thought, okay, you know, they're trying to push people towards the App Store and more to digital downloads. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with adding a Blu-ray drive onto one of these systems. There's nothing wrong with it. People use it, you know. You're forced to spend £2.5 on a Mac, but, you know, if you want to do other things, like connect 2 monitors, for instance, you've got to spend $30–40 or quid on an adapter when you spent all that money on a machine in the first place. That to me is not innovation. That to me is taking a step backwards. When you remove something from a system, that's going backwards, not forwards. They want to add to it, not remove, you know, remove stuff from it. That's not innovation, that's going backwards. And because they're getting so thin and more thinner, the specs are getting lower. I mean, you just look at the Mac Mini, the new Mac Mini they released. You know, I had a Core i7, I've still got it in the other room, you know, quad core, and they thought by re-releasing it and giving you no option to upgrade the RAM and slower CPUs, that is better. But how's that better? That's not innovation. That's going backwards in my eyes. Now, I use a Mac Pro, as you can see behind me, but like I say, guys, I'm using it natively with Windows, and Windows flies. You know, I've got a Titan 12GB black graphics card, which absolutely flies in this system, and it's just strange that Windows runs the hardware, this hardware, better than OS X does. It just don't make sense to me. I just don't get you know, I've seen people building Hackintoshes, and I've built quite a few flipping Hackintoshes in my time. I really have. And I've seen people build them with, excuse me, hardware that's absolutely mind-blowing, you know. The top-of-the-range Core i7, top-of-the-range graphics, you know, spending all this money on this hardware only to get half the performance of what the hardware is capable of getting. That to me is not, don't make sense. Why would you buy a Titan Black 12GB graphics or a 6GB graphics card and not get the optimal performance of that card? Only getting like literally half the performance of that card. That don't make sense. That really don't. And that's why I think, you know, Apple hardware sort of runs a lot, you know, lasts a hell of a lot longer, because the system never utilises the hardware properly. It can't do, because when you run Windows on it, it runs a hell of a lot faster than OS X does. You get more performance out of your graphics card in, say, for instance, a MacBook Pro than you do running OS X on a MacBook Pro. That don't make sense. And a lot of people might look and, you know, start a big argument and say, shut up, Carla, but at the end of the day, you can turn around and leave as many comments in the description below as you want, saying, you know, no, I love my Mac Pro, which is fair enough. I love this, I love that, you know. But at the end of the day, you cannot overrule facts. You cannot, you know, you can't ignore what's the truth. It's facts at the end of the day. And you know, I'm not slandering Macs or Apple, because as you can see, I run a Mac Pro behind me, and this is a 12-core system, and I love it. But I love it when I'm running bloody Windows on it, which is weird. But yeah, I just wanted to get this little rant out of the way and tell you guys, look, think when you're building a Hackintosh, you know, and you go out and you spend all this money on some serious hardware only to run it at half its potential. I would say to you guys, you know, stick with Windows, because not only are you building a Hackintosh, for instance, you know, not only are you getting all this top hardware and you're putting it together and putting the OS X on there, one, you're getting an unstable system, and two, you're not utilising your hardware. That's going backwards. Why would you spend 400 or 500 quid on a cock-on CPU, all that money on a cock-on GPU, only to utilise half the performance of it? That don't make sense. Tell me if I'm wrong. Do you know what I mean? You know, leave a comment in the description. Tell me if I'm wrong. You know, why would you do that? So that's why I've natively installed Windows on this system, and it's fucking fast, mate. I'll tell you, it utilises the hardware of this Mac Pro Windows to its full potential. I'm getting the highest frame rates possible on the GPU. I'm getting faster speeds on the CPU. You know, obviously, you know, I've got a program called Mac Fan Controller, so I can control my fans as well when I'm rendering and stuff like that. But that's sort of the way I feel, and that's why I think Apple sort of really give me up, and I really don't like them at the minute. I love their hardware, don't like their software, don't like what they're doing with their software, and I don't like the fact that they're trying to innovate too much and they're forgetting about what the people need and what the people want. Going back to, I don't care if it's thin. Who gives a shit? I don't want to stick my fucking MacBook Pro in an envelope. You know, I want to use the fucking thing. Do you know what I mean? When's it going to get to the point where you're going to, you know, it's going to be as thin as a piece of paper like that, and you're going to say, here mate, look how thin my new MacBook Pro is. Do you know what I mean? Where is it? Exactly. So thin you can't fucking see it. I've got no I/O ports. I can't plug fuck all into it, but look how thin it is. Sick. So thin, I can't plug anything into it. It's so thin, I can't even see it. Who gives a fuck? Build them the way they used to build them. Build them the way they used to build them, man. Good, solid, strong machines. Simple as. Do you know what I mean? This lasts forever. I already know quite a few people that got a 2013 Mac Pro and their GPUs are failing, and they have to send them back to the Apple store, or they have to send them back to Apple to get them repaired or replaced, because they're not lasting. Do you know what I mean? Upgradability as well. When we buy a computer, we like to upgrade. And when you have a computer, for instance, or you have a PC tower, the way you make that better is by upgrading the components, upgrading the CPU, upgrading the GPU, you know, upgrading the RAM. You know, that's innovating because you're making something faster, you're making something better spec. You're not removing all your I/O from the front of the tower, yeah, and all your USBs, and then putting in worse hardware, yeah, just so you can make the thing smaller. That to me is not innovation. That to me is just take the step backwards, and that just don't make sense. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick little rant. Thanks for listening as always. Do remember to hit that like button and that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. It does mean the world to me. And guys, I'll catch you in the next one. So just think about what I've just said, yeah? Ciao, ciao.